Welcome back, history enthusiasts. Today, we dive into one of the most captivating mysteries of the ancient world, Cleopatra's true heritage. Was she purely of Greek origin, or did African roots weave into her story? Stay tuned as we unpack fascinating evidence, debunk myths, and explore how modern debates shape our view of the legendary queen. Cleopatra VII, the last ruler of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, has captivated our imaginations for centuries. With iconic portraits on coins and controversial debates about her ethnicity, her story is not only about power and politics, but also about identity and legacy. You know how some historical figures are so legendary that everyone thinks they know their story? Well, Cleopatra VII is definitely one of them. But here's the thing. Most of what we think we know about her comes from Hollywood and pop culture, not actual history. Let's dive into the real story of this fascinating ruler's background and unravel the layers that form her complex identity. As I began exploring, I found that her life was far richer and more intricate than the myths suggest. And trust me, it's even more thrilling than what you might have seen in blockbuster movies. First things first, Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian by blood. She was actually part of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. These folks traced their lineage back to Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's most trusted generals. After Alexander's death in 323 BCE, Ptolemy stepped into Egypt and set up what would become one of the most influential Hellenistic kingdoms in the ancient world. Knowing this, I couldn't help but be fascinated by how a Greek dynasty came to dominate a land as storied and mystically rich as Egypt. Now here's where things get really interesting. While it's well documented that Cleopatra's heritage was heavily Greek, there's been an ongoing debate about whether she might have had some Egyptian or even other ancestries mixed in. The Ptolemies, as I discovered, were rather infamous for keeping their lineage pure through quite convoluted family trees, brother-sister marriages, and all sorts of royal intrigue that would put modern soap operas to shame. This dramatic family background adds so much spice to her story, making it a legendary saga of power, passion, and political strategy. But Cleopatra wasn't like the rest of her kin in one crucial way. She embraced Egyptian culture wholeheartedly. Unlike previous Ptolemaic rulers who shunned the local customs, Cleopatra took the bold step of learning the Egyptian language and presenting herself as the living embodiment of the goddess Isis. I found it incredibly inspiring how she transcended her Greek roots to connect deeply with the Egyptian people, forging an identity that was as much about cultural unity as it was about political power. This ability to merge 2 distinct heritages and turn them into her greatest asset truly set her apart as a revolutionary leader in her time. When I first started exploring Cleopatra's legacy, I was immediately captivated by the tangible evidence left behind in coins and artworks. It wasn't long before I realized that these artifacts weren't just relics of ancient commerce or art. They were powerful messages crafted to celebrate her Greek heritage. Every detailed engraving and inscription echoed the Hellenistic traditions that defined her lineage, reminding me that Cleopatra was not merely an Egyptian queen, but a ruler deeply rooted in Macedonian Greek culture. Take, for instance, the striking tetradrachm coins from her reign. As I examined these miniature masterpieces, I couldn't help but admire how each coin boldly features Cleopatra wearing a diadem, the crown symbolizing Hellenistic royal authority. The coins bear the Greek inscription Basilessa Cleopatra, leaving no doubt about her identity and legitimacy as a queen steeped in Greek tradition. It felt as though Cleopatra herself was sending a timeless message. I proudly belong to the Greek world, and that realization truly resonated with me. Beyond coins, I also spent a great deal of time studying marble portraits and busts that vividly capture her features. One portrait, housed in Berlin's Altes Museum, for example, showcased her with those unmistakably Greek traits: almond-shaped eyes, a refined nose, and a hairstyle befitting a Macedonian queen. Observing these sculptures, I was struck by how deliberately the artists emphasized her Hellenistic beauty. It was as if every chiseled line was meant to reassert her deep ties to Greek aesthetics and ideological heritage. Adding to the intrigue, archaeological finds at sites like the Taposiris Magna Temple complex revealed coins bearing her image in contexts that underscored this dual narrative. These coins weren't just minted to circulate currency. They were a strategic tool, artfully blending her Greek legacy with the broader Egyptian milieu she governed. I found it fascinating how her regime used these artistic mediums to communicate power and legitimacy, balancing the local Egyptian influences with an unwavering commitment to her Greek roots. This clever use of imagery not only reinforced her rule, but also made her legacy all the more remarkable in my eyes. As I dug deeper into Cleopatra's family tree, I was struck by the murkiness surrounding her maternal lineage. While most historical records clearly emphasize her Macedonian Greek heritage, on her father's side, the unknown identities of her mother, and even her paternal grandmother, leave room for intriguing alternative theories. Some researchers argue that these gaps might hint at African ancestry, a possibility that has ignited passionate debates among scholars and enthusiasts alike. This uncertainty forces us to ask whether Cleopatra's story could be more diverse than the traditional narrative suggests. One particularly controversial moment in the discussion came in 2009, when a BBC documentary examined skeletal remains believed at the time to be those of Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe IV. The film suggested that these remains might indicate North African traits, fueling speculation about an African influence in Cleopatra's lineage. However, later investigations debunked that hypothesis by revealing that the remains belonged to a much younger male individual. This episode not only illustrates just how challenging it is to decode ancient genetics and lineage, but also highlights how a single piece of evidence can rouse fervent debates in modern times. What fascinates me even more is how the concept of race in Cleopatra's world was vastly different from our modern understanding. In the cosmopolitan city of Alexandria, where cultures blended freely, rigid racial categories we use today simply didn't exist. Cleopatra was a ruler who navigated and embraced this multicultural landscape. She spoke both Greek and Egyptian and used symbolism, like aligning herself with the goddess Isis, to connect with all her subjects. This fluidity in identity means that while mainstream historians predominantly view her as Macedonian Greek, the gaps in her maternal history leave us with a lingering possibility of African contributions to her heritage. Today, the debate over Cleopatra's racial identity continues to resonate, echoing modern discussions about representation and cultural legacy. Modern media portrayals and casting controversies, such as debates surrounding Netflix's reinterpretations of her image, remind us that Cleopatra's story is not just a matter of ancient history. It's also about how we choose to see ourselves in her narrative. Even though mainstream scholarship upholds her Greek ancestry, the allure of a more multifaceted heritage persists, sparking ongoing dialogue about identity, power, and what history means to us today. This enduring debate makes Cleopatra not only an iconic historical figure, but also a symbol of the complex interwoven nature of cultural identity. As I dive into modern debates about Cleopatra, I'm struck by how contemporary scholars are re-examining the age-old claims of her Macedonian Greek ancestry. While ancient texts and classical artifacts confidently document her lineage, today's discussions have broadened to address modern questions of representation and identity. I see this shift as a call to look beyond the rigid categories of the past. It's all about how we interpret historical figures through the lens of today's values. This evolving dialogue challenges me to appreciate that Cleopatra's story isn't static. It's alive with multiple perspectives, each inviting us to rethink the interplay between documented history and our modern understanding of race and culture. In my exploration, I've also noticed a significant feminist reinterpretation of Cleopatra's legacy. Rather than reducing her to an icon of romance or exotic beauty, modern historians are celebrating her as an intelligent diplomat and resilient leader. I find it refreshing how current scholarship highlights her savvy political moves, her educational prowess, and her ability to navigate a male-dominated world. This reinterpretation not only counters centuries of reductive narratives, but also empowers us to see her in a more complete light. A true strategist whose intellect and determination reshaped the political landscape of her time. Another fascinating aspect that has captivated my interest is the influence of modern technology and archaeological discoveries on our understanding of Cleopatra's reign. Innovations like advanced imaging techniques and underwater excavations in Alexandria are unearthing fresh evidence that sometimes challenges long-held assumptions. I've seen firsthand how these scientific breakthroughs add new layers to the story, revealing intricate details about Cleopatra's court and daily life that were previously lost in time. For me, these advancements are not just about refining historical facts. They underscore the dynamic, ever-evolving nature of how we reconstruct and understand ancient histories. Lastly, reflecting on Cleopatra's cultural impact today, I'm amazed at how her legacy has permeated both academic debates and popular media. Her portrayal in films, literature, and digital platforms continuously stirs discussions about her true identity and the meaning of her rule. I find that this ongoing conversation, where academic inquiry meets Hollywood dramatization, reminds us that history is never simply written in stone. It's a living dialogue that adapts to new insights and contemporary values. For me, engaging with these diverse interpretations affirms that Cleopatra remains a timeless enigma, symbolizing the complex interplay between legacy, power, and cultural identity. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Cleopatra's fascinating heritage is rooted solely in Greek traditions, or is there room in history for some African influence? Drop a comment below with your opinions and theories. If you enjoyed this journey into Cleopatra's fascinating blend of cultures and hidden intrigues, I'd love for you to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into history's most captivating mysteries, and ring the bell so you never miss out on any future adventures. Drop a comment below sharing which part of her story intrigued you the most, and share this video with your fellow history enthusiasts. Let's keep uncovering the secrets of the past together.